You are being recorded. If you don't want to be recorded.
Welcome to the AK5EX repeater PL110.9.
That was interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I guess Keith's not available tonight. Good evening and welcome.
You can only have one meeting going on at a time. Tony, how are you?
Nice to see Bill Rankin here.
I am fine, and you?
I'm doing all right, thanks.
Hello,
My
Joanne.
library board meeting ended early, so I made
good.
it here.
Excellent.
It's been so long since I've seen Joanne. We have to stop doing Zoom meetings.
We had to stop meeting like this, right?
Right.
Pandemic's over. We can meet in person.
Yes.
Like riding a bicycle. Just go back to it and you can remember.
All right, some folks still coming in here. My children are texting me. They probably want money. We'll ignore them for an hour at least here. All right, we're going to give it another 90 seconds or so, and then we will get started. Can you all see my screen?
Yes.
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 Yeah.
All right. Thanks so much. Let's see, Joanne, let's see, can I do this from here? Yes. Yes, I do. I made you a co-host so that you can present, Joanne, when the time comes.
Thank you.
I'll have a few
And
slides to go through, and then
I can have my technical assistant come if I have any trouble.
Perfect.
Not very difficult.
You're on-call IT support.
I do. Fortunately, I'm married to a computer scientist. So.
Well, there you go.
No idea how to get my picture working.
Your camera? Going to be a little different. There should be an icon somewhere in the lower corner. You want to get your camera turned on. All right, 20 more seconds and we're kicking off. Got some new faces, some familiar faces. All right, let's hop into it here. Good evening, everybody. Thanks for taking time out of your Tuesday to join us. If you're, I may mute people just if there's background noise. If you're not speaking, if you can go on mute, that would be great. My name is Rick Kennedy. I am the state chair of the Texas Forward Party. A little bit of background on me. Two-time Democratic Party nominee for United States Congress here in Texas in the 17th District, 2018 and 2020, walked away after 2020, entirely disenchanted with the whole system, said I would never be involved in politics again. Long story short, here I sit in front of you as the state chair of the Texas Forward Party, trying to make some sort of a difference. Let's see, I've already got the recording turned on so that I don't have to revisit that again. Agenda this evening is very straightforward. I'm going to revisit something that we talked about last month, which is the core message of the Texas Forward Party. Then we're going to talk a little bit about partnering and organizing. We have a distinguished partner on the call with us tonight, Joanne Richards from RCV Texas, Ranked Choice Voting Texas, who will be giving us an overview of ranked choice voting for those who don't know what it is and the activities of her organization. and how we can help her organization with their mission. I'll also be talking about another loosely partnered organization that's certainly philosophically aligned with us and may be very helpful to some of the folks on the phone, especially if you are helping a candidate run for office, or if you're actually running yourself, you might want to take advantage of these folks. We'll elaborate on that when we get there. A little more organization about our organizing e-convention that we're having in June, on June 8th of this year. And of course, how you can help, and a Q&A session at the end. But as I always say, we want these to be interactive as much as possible. If you have a question midstream, go ahead and shout it out or raise your little electronic hand and we'll try to get to you. I can't see the chat, but if you type it in the chat, if somebody could call that out, we'll try to answer those questions as well. Oh, look, there is one in the chat. Look at that. I can see the chat. Okay, off camera. Great. So let's dive into it. Our message, if you're new to the Texas Forward Party, I believe some of the folks on the call certainly are. Our message is very simple. It's very focused. It's very straightforward, and we're gonna do everything we can to stick to message discipline around focusing on this. We've just experienced this. The partisan primaries and gerrymandering corrupt our elections. Only hyper-partisan, ideologically extreme candidates make it through the primary to the general election. And in most situations, the outcome of the general election is predetermined by the gerrymandering. So unless you voted in the primary on March 5th of this year, or you regularly vote in primaries, and very few of us do, a very small percentage do, and we'll see that on the next slide. Unless you vote in that primary of the favored party in your district, you have basically lost your ability to choose your representatives and to hold them accountable at the ballot box. As an example, in Mark P. Jones, who is the Baker Fellow for Political Science at Rice University, he in his estimation, out of the 219 total Texas House, Texas Senate, and U.S. congressional districts in Texas, 219 total districts, all of 7 of them are considered competitive in the general election. And if you ask me, the 3 that are at 10, 9, and 8% gaps are probably not all that competitive in and of themselves. So as few as 4 of these seats out of 219 are actually competitive. And in 2022, of the 219 seats that were on the ballot, 212 were determined in the primary. That's 96.8%. And fresh numbers from March 5th of our primary of this year, only 18.87% of registered voters turned out, 12.99% on the Republican side, and quite frankly, a dismal 5.88% on the Democratic side. And you know what? It's even worse than that. 18.87% of registered voters turned out, only 15.07% of voting age population, because we don't register a lot of voters here in Texas, or all of them that we could. So just as an example, I live in a district, Texas House district, that is gerrymandered in favor of the Democrats because the Republicans couldn't figure out how to make it work for the Republicans. It's about a D+15 district. And we had a voter turnout, Democratic Party voter turnout of about that 5%. And the winner of that primary won with just under 5,000 votes. And she will go on to win the general election because it's gerrymandered so far in her favor. So literally 5,000 folks in my Texas House district have selected our representative. Yeah, go ahead, Joanne.
So if I can chime in, I sent a letter to the editor of the Austin American Statesman, basically on the same vein, but something like 21 House Democrats are returning to the House because they have no opposition in the general election.
Yep.
So one of the reasons that the voter turnout was so small was a lot of them are unopposed, and so there wasn't any reason to go vote.
Yep. And many elections go unopposed. And I'll actually talk about that in a little bit. But you know, in general, there are about 500,000 elected offices in the United States. In any given election cycle, upwards of 70% of those seats go unopposed. Dripping Springs was on course to have a May municipal election. They had 2 city council members and their mayor up on the ballot, and they canceled that May election because nobody filed against any of them. So that's fairly typical, in fact. You can see the 2020 primary turnouts, the previous presidential election cycle. You can see that the turnout this year dropped even dramatically from what it was in 2020, and that drop was entirely on the Democratic Party side. So I would have thought the Democrats would have had a more robust conversation, if you will, about who they were going to put up to oppose Ted Cruz, but apparently not. Apparently that wasn't enough to motivate them. So, our mission is very simple. Our goal is to empower Texas voters and classify them as the silenced majority, disenfranchised by the gerrymandering, or the exhausted majority who are absolutely sick and tired of the 2 extremes going at each other. We want to empower the electorate to fairly elect their representatives and hold them accountable at the ballot box through electoral forms such as ranked choice voting and nonpartisan primaries. Sorry. So how do we do that? We rolled this out last month. This hasn't changed. We've got a 3-prong approach to make this happen. We're going to partner with likewise organizations. We're going to organize at the county level, and we are going to win seats in the legislature so that we can actually effect change to these policies. So let's talk about we're going to focus on partnering and organizing tonight. You can't win until you get candidates on the ballot, and that's a couple of years away for us, but we've got to do the groundwork first. So let's talk about some partners that we've been working with. And the first one I'll talk about is an outfit called The Good Party. We had a meeting, many of the state chairs of the Texas Forward Party had a meeting with them last Thursday. Introductory meeting, and they provide training and artificial intelligence powered technical support for independent and nonpartisan candidates. And I was enraptured, enamored with their tool set and the AI empowering behind their tool set. So I called them back, and I had another half-hour session with them today to understand more in depth about what the process is, and to get on board with their tools and how to make it work. They charge a whopping $10 a month. If you're an independent or nonpartisan candidate, they're charging a whopping $10 a month to engage with them. They're a new organization. They're a nascent organization. They're still developing, but I'm very impressed with what they're capable of doing. And I'm actually going to use myself as a guinea pig and try these tools out. I'm, as absurd as it is, because I've only lived in San Marcos for less than a year, and I'll barely be even eligible to do so, but I'm pondering very seriously a run for San Marcos City Council, especially if one of those seats appears to be unopposed as the filing period closes. We don't want any election to go unopposed, so I would take a shot at it if again, if one of the seats is unopposed. But I also want to run a campaign and raise awareness and potentially get ranked choice voting onto the city charter here in San Marcos, as has been done in Austin. Sorry. And as Joanne and her organization are trying really hard right now to get on the city charter up in Dallas. So that link there, goodparty.org, if you're interested in checking out their tools, if you're running for office, if you're pondering running for office, although if you're running as an independent or for state house or state senate, you would have already had to file, so that window is closed. But if you want to run as an independent in, say, a municipal election that's happening in November, you're likely that your filing opportunity is still open. Those tend to happen in June and July for municipal elections that are in November. By all means, check them out. When I first pondered running for Congress back in 2017, I really wanted to run as an independent. And it took me about 10 minutes worth of research to figure out that I just did not have the resources, the wherewithal to run as an independent. And there really wasn't much out there to help. And the reason this good party resonated with me so much was because if this was 7 years ago, I would have totally engaged and tried to pull that off as an independent rather than running as a Democrat. So again, I encourage you all to go check it out. And with that, I will actually turn it over to Ranked Choice Voting Texas Vice Chair Joanne Richards, who is going to, as I said in the opening, walk us through ranked choice voting if you don't know what it is and how it works, and how her organization is working in Texas to make it happen. So I'm going to stop sharing, and Joanne, you can start. Oh, you're on mute. So if you're talking to us,
I will try to share my screen.
yeah, there should be a big green share button down at the bottom there.
Yep, there is, and there it is. Share.
And here it comes.
Do you see it?
Yep.
Good.
I do.
I hope everybody else does too. So just as Rick mentioned, if you have any questions as we go along, do not hesitate to ask. And Rick will look, and I will try my best to look as well. Ranked choice voting for Texas started several years ago. And does that work? Or should I move it back where it was? We're okay?
I'm sorry. It's all good. Yep.
It's all good. Okay.
Yep.
So the current system that we have, right, is first past the post system plurality voting. And the challenge is if there are more than 3 candidates, a winner can receive less than 50% of the vote and still win an election. The spoiler effect, if there are multiple candidates with similar backgrounds, they will end up splitting the vote, and the third party or fourth party candidate may win. And the question really in taking a look at first past the vote is, who does the majority actually prefer? And so that's where ranked choice voting comes into play, because we're interested really in broadening the support for particular candidates, any particular candidate. And so we also now have 2-round runoff systems, which are extremely expensive. Somehow these slides are not working out properly. I'm going to move them over to the other screen and see whether that will work. I'm not sure I can do that.
You did just flip.
I apologize, but for some reason the material right here is not showing up. In this case, with a 2-round runoff system, if a majority of votes are required for an election, if John Doe, in this case John Q, and Jane Doe get 30% and 20% of the vote, and the other candidates get less than that, those two go into a runoff election, and we proceed from there. Runoff elections usually take place 2 to 3 months after the initial election, and are typically very low turnout, typically less than 50% of the people who ran in the initial election. So although it appears mathematically to voters that somebody is winning with 50% of the vote, they're winning with 50% of the vote of those people who voted in the runoff election, not 50% of the people who voted in the initial election. So that's an important piece of information. Ranked choice voting is really a better system. It saves money because you eliminate the second runoff election. It assures that there is a majority winner. There is greater choice because there tends to be more candidates who are willing to run, because the candidate elections, I should say the campaigning, tends to be a more positive and issue-oriented campaigning. So people are more likely to run in those elections than if they are in a negative campaign where they have to look behind their shoulder all the time to see what kind of negative comments are being made. There's stronger voice, there's greater voter participation, more people come out and vote, and these campaigns are much less negative. If I am running in a ranked choice voting election, if I am not your first choice, I definitely want to be your second choice. And so I have to present myself in that vein. For those elected officials that have currently been elected under the old system, or current system, many of their comments would be, well, I would never have been elected under a ranked choice voting system. And my comment usually is, you don't know the answer to that because the kind of campaigning is very different. And because the campaigning is so different, there is no predictability as to whether you would have won or would have lost. What is ranked choice voting? It is a nonpartisan change in voting logistics that only comes into play if a candidate does not get a majority. So if there are 5 candidates and somebody gets 50% or more on first round, they are elected just like they're elected now. Instead of holding a second runoff election sometime in the future, voters rank their candidates based on their preferences. And therefore, their voice can be heard. Instant runoff occurs to identify the candidate with the majority vote. And that's the way it occurs. So this was a special election in the 6th congressional district. And if you take a look at the outcome, right, one of the questions that we have always asked is somebody actually winning with a majority vote, representing those voters in their districts? And so in May 1st of 2021, there was a special election to fill a vacancy. There were 23 candidates. And that's not unusual for a special election. The top 2 candidates were Wright. He got 19.2% of the vote of the 79,000 votes that were cast. And Elsie got 13.8%, so they went in a runoff. The runoff occurred July 27th. You can see the outcome. Elsie got 53% of the 39,000 votes. Wright got 47, so Elsie wins. But that's 39,000 votes total rather than the 79,000 originally. So is there really a majority winner here? We would say no. And the cost of the runoff election to taxpayers and candidates is rather large, and they have to wait for an additional 2 months in order to be able to fill the vacancy in this special election. Ranked choice voting for Texas is particularly interested in special elections because in special elections, there tend to be many candidates and they are from all parties. Everybody runs on one ballot. So this is a typical kind of reaction. You can see what the cost is. The total cost to fill the vacancy was $438,000. The cost to fill within ranked choice voting would have been $166,000. There would have been a $62,000 savings if we could have eliminated that runoff in that particular district.
I'd also like to point out that Elsie won with what, 20,000 or so votes in the runoff. That constitutes less than 3% of the population of the average congressional district.
Correct.
So,
Yeah, so that's not majority.
John Keller has his hand up.
I kind of had the same question. So Joanne, the 26%, was that 26% of the votes cast in the original primary, or 26% of, so do you know the percentage of registered voters in the district?
I don't have that at the top of my fingers. I know that I looked at the current primary that we just had, and on the Democratic side, the primary was between 5 and 8% of registered voters in districts. On the Republican side, it was between 10 and 15% of registered voters. And if
18
you
for the
are in
total.
in those districts, and if you are in an election that has no opposition, then you're basically winning with 10% of the registered voters in your district.
So easily might have been single digits of
He very well might have.
I can almost guarantee if it's 2.7% of the population, then it was probably 4.5%, maybe 5% of registered voters.
Yeah. The cost is rather high, as you can see. The Texas 2022 primary election, we could have saved 34% of the cost based on the runoff in both Democratic and Republican primaries and their runoff elections. So it's quite substantial, and taxpayers are paying for this. In the Virginia gubernatorial election, where Glenn Youngkin finally won, the Virginia Republican Party got together and decided that they needed to elect at the primary, or nominated at the primary level, a candidate that was more likely to win than any of the other candidates that were potential candidates. They hadn't had a Republican governor in many years, something like 10 years. And so they decided that they needed to identify a candidate that was more electable within the party. And so that's exactly what happened. So the concern was that they had 7 candidates. Could someone be nominated with a plurality support with the party in the general election? The plan was to use ranked choice voting to nominate a candidate that would be more attractive to voters. Glenn Youngkin received 33% of the first votes. And when all the votes were counted in a ranked choice voting system, he won with 55% of the vote. And the conclusion was that a more electable candidate was actually nominated, went on to the general election and won. Ranked choice voting is all over the country now. There are something like 50 municipalities that have ranked choice voting. There are 2 states that have only ranked choice voting in all of their elections. One of them is Maine, the other is Alaska. You'll see all of the blue states, which are all the southern states. They all have ranked choice voting for military and overseas voters, which is a constituency. The problem there is that often it is difficult to get the runoff ballot to military and overseas voters in time for them to return those ballots by the time a runoff election occurs. It's a rather unique system that they use. What happens is that any military or overseas voter gets 2 ballots at the same time. One's a traditional ballot and one's a ranked choice voting ballot. And the traditional ballot is open first, and that vote is counted. If there's a runoff election, their second ballot is open, and that tells which candidate was the highest in their ranking, and that person gets their vote in the runoff. It's a unique system. It takes place in all of the southern states, except ours. Of course, I suppose you can make an argument that we're not a southern state, so who knows. The mechanics of ranked choice voting are not difficult to explain. The voters rank their candidates on their ballot, and we suggest that it's as easy as 1, 2, 3. You all rate things every day. You know who your preference is, and you know who you like a little bit better than somebody else. But you know what? You might be satisfied with 2 of the 5 candidates, but you want to express your vote for either. I was caught in that same dilemma in the Austin mayor's race because there were 5 candidates. I liked 2 of them quite well. I liked one of them a little bit better. I would have liked to have ranked them all 5 of them, so that we didn't have to have a runoff and spend all the extra money on that runoff election. We could have avoided it easily. The votes are counted for each candidate. If there is no one that receives a majority vote on the first count, then the lowest vote getter is eliminated. And the votes for that eliminated candidate are redistributed based on their second choices. And this goes on until somebody receives 51% of the vote, or 50.1% of the vote. And that's how it works. Do you want me to go through the entire process, or are you familiar enough with it that we should skip these slides? That's up to you.
I think we have some folks on who are almost entirely unfamiliar with it. So,
Okay, so let's go through the slides.
Yeah.
So here is a ballot with 3 candidates, candidate A, B, and C. And I get to list my preference. So my first preference is candidate A. My second preference is candidate C, sorry. And my third is candidate B. And so it's as easy as doing 1, 2, 3. I can mention to you that I am a member of a book club. We use a application called OPA Vote, and we choose our book based on ranked choice voting. So we rank the vote, and OPA Vote does all the calculation and tells us which book comes out on top, and that's the book that we read. So all the first votes are counted, and you can see here there's A, B, C, D, and E. A, B, C, D, I'm sorry. And you can see that for our purpose, we're assuming that there are 100 voters, so there have to be 50 plus 1 votes in order to meet the majority vote category. So here you see that candidate A received 36 votes, and although they were the top vote getter, they didn't get 50% of the vote. So no one has a majority, so we go to the next step. So the next step is that candidate D is eliminated, and their second choice votes are added, and you can see that in the orange. So 5 of their votes went to candidate A, 6 of their votes went to candidate B, and 4 of their votes went to candidate C. But again, you can see that the total for A is only 40 votes, and they need 50 to get a majority. So this next round has to occur. And so candidate C is eliminated, and their votes are redistributed. Who's in their second place? Who's still in the running? Candidate A and B, and who did they vote for? And so that gets distributed. And lo and behold, 15 voted for candidate A, and 10 voted for candidate B. Candidate A now has more than 50% of the vote, and candidate A wins. This is all done in the background by a computer, just like we have elections today, that is all done by computer in the background. You don't look inside that black box. Lots of computer scientists look inside that black box to make sure that it's done accurately, and that it passes muster. And the same thing is true here. Several folks think that this is particularly confusing to voters. And I would suggest to you that we went from paper ballots to computer access to vote. And the argument there was it was going to be terribly confusing and people would not be able to adjust. Lo and behold, people adjusted. Then we moved from computer voting to inserting a paper ballot into that voting machine so that we had a record of who you voted for. not who you do, but you could check who you voted for and put that in the ballot, and that was the official vote. Oh, people thought that was going to be terribly confusing and we wouldn't be able to adjust to that. Lo and behold, people really like it. And I think that the same thing holds for ranked choice voting. It does require probably a 2 to 3 year educational campaign. The League of Women Voters does educational campaigns like this all the time. They are used to doing this. And so this would be no different. Since there are, I often mention that my sister lives in Cambridge, Massachusetts, and they have been using ranked choice voting for their city council folks since 1941. And they seem to be doing okay with it.
Since
They don't seem to have
1941,
any
really?
trouble.
Joanne,
Say it again, Rick?
since 1941?
1941 was when they started
Wow.
it. It's a little bit more confusing than just ranked choice voting because it's the first transferable vote because they have multiple districts, multiple people running in districts. But so ours is really a whole lot simpler.
Yep.
Um,
Tony Wing Jenkins has her hand up. Tony?
yeah,
And actually, I don't have a question. I just want to throw something in. I'm a
Sure.
retired 5th grade teacher, and we used to make all our classroom decisions using this. So even a 5th grader can do it.
absolutely. Good for you. Absolutely. So summary, voters rank. It's not difficult. The votes are counted for each. The lowest is eliminated until you get 51% of the vote. That's the way it's done. There have been multiple polls taken of those people who have experienced ranked choice voting and how they like it. I won't go and read all of this, but let me tell you that it is well received by those people who have tried it. We're campaigning in Texas to adopt ranked choice voting. It's ranked choice voting for Texas. We're nonpartisan, we're nonprofit. We're 100% volunteer organization until April, in which case we will have a part-time executive director. We advocate locally at the legislature for Texas to adopt ranked choice voting. In 2023 legislative session, we had a number of bills filed, one for military and overseas voters, one for nonpartisan municipal elections, and one for special elections. And we intend to do the same and add primary elections in 2025. We were lucky enough in 2021 where our military and overseas voter ranked choice voting initiative passed in the House, but it didn't get to the Senate in time to be considered in the Senate. So there is some understanding of what ranked choice voting is. How can you help? Well, one of the things that we are trying to do is to develop a program called Get to Know Your Legislator, where we will target various districts to let people who we know are returning to the 2025 legislative session, let them know that their constituents want them to consider ranked choice voting by having them send email messages, make telephone calls, and go visit their districts, their district offices, to explain why it is that they are interested in ranked choice voting, why it is of benefit. So you can learn more by joining ranked choice voting for Texas. You get our newsletter, you're on action alerts if you so choose, and you can help us in districts all over the state like you have done up in Dallas. So today they're having a town hall meeting on Amendment 2 about adopting ranked choice voting for municipal elections in Dallas as a trigger law. So when and if it gets approved by the legislature, and they would like to elect their city council members in that way. Just as Austin has done several years ago, about 4 years ago, we passed an initiative in Austin that said that we wanted to use ranked choice voting. What we are doing now is looking for a prominently red district that would also like to use ranked choice voting, so that we can go to the legislature next session and say, we have a number of municipalities that want to try this. And if you will approve it for these 3 municipalities, they can try it. We can do the education piece, see how they like it, and hopefully it will expand, just like what was done for countywide polling places. It started as a pilot, and it was so attractive to voters that it expanded in so many districts around the country, around the state. So we want to try to do the same thing. You can volunteer with us. You can certainly always contribute. We have both a tax deductible 501c3 and 501c4 organization. So that's a quick rundown of ranked choice voting and what we are doing. We are trying our best to find Republicans who are willing to file bills in the next legislative session. We know that there are Democrats who are willing to file, but if we don't have Republicans who are willing to either file or jointly file, they will never be heard because of the control of the House.
And if Dade Phelan loses his runoff or loses his House speakership, even if he wins his seat, that dynamic is only going to get worse because it's
and
not
Reggie Smith, who was the elections chair, lost his election, so he will not be returning. Everyone else on the committee looks like they will be returning, but he was key. And we appreciate any of the people in the Forward Party who made calls or sent emails to the Dallas folks in support of ranked choice voting in Dallas, because it really is a statewide effort to try to get key places where we have constituencies that can help us move forward. What this will do for us is or all of us, is to have a diversity of candidates with civil discourse, because if I'm not your first choice, I want to be your second choice. And it will change, it may very well change the demeanor of legislators on the House floor and on the Senate floor. And maybe we can actually get bipartisan support for bills. That's the hope.
That's the goal.
That's the goal.
And just to clarify, because most of the folks on the Forward Party mailing list, and I'm sure most of the folks on the phone didn't see this, but Forward Party did send emails on behalf of ranked choice voting, on behalf of this effort in Dallas, to get this trigger law in place to encourage forwardists who live in the city of Dallas to petition their what's the name of the commission?
the Charter Review Commission.
The Charter Review Commission.
And Dallas has a Charter Review. Dallas has a Charter Review Commission every 10 years. San Antonio, I believe, has one can have one every 5 years. Austin, I think, can have one every 2 years, but they don't. It's a lot of work.
Right.
And
ballot initiatives at the municipal level is another approach to getting RCV adopted at the municipal level.
True, but you need 20,000 signatures, and that costs a lot of money.
Yeah, I know in San Marcos you need 10% of registered voters, so that's almost 5,000 signatures, which is not inexpensive.
No.
John Keller, your hand is up again.
Joanne, ranked choice voting, you don't need sell me on ranked choice voting. To me, if we want to fix our broken political process, ranked choice voting is the keystone. We're not going to be very successful in fixing things without it, because not only will it change how we vote, it'll change how candidates have to campaign.
Correct.
But and it's a hard question, but what's the strategy and how do we reach? I mean, I'm thinking if I could sell ranked choice voting to the Greg Abbott, Dan Patrick, Ken Paxton crowd, I'm going to get on a plane and go to Gaza City and fix Hamas and the Israelis. I mean, it's just ranked choice voting to them is I'm a god, and they'll. So how do we put enough pressure to get some movement?
So the way we did this in 2003 was to invite Republicans from Utah and from Virginia to come and testify before the Senate State Affairs Committee that is chaired by Senator Hughes, to tell him why it was beneficial to the Republican Party. And as a result, the ban bill was dropped. So he is now no longer in the ban category. He's in the let's study this category. We are trying to get an interim charge to study ranked choice voting, to look at it across the country, to see why it has been successful. Why do people like it? I don't know whether we will be successful because there are so many important people running in the runoff toward the end of May, and then we move into the election cycle. So I don't know whether there will actually be interim charges at all.
Mm-hmm. All right, Raj,
Sure.
you got your hand up? Oh, John, you have a follow-up?
No, just I hear what you're saying, Joanne, and I know from working years in a very large corporation that kind of the best way to get people to do things that they might not otherwise have been so excited about is to get them to think it's their idea.
Correct. It's their idea and it's to their benefit.
I'm just the Abbott, Patrick, and Paxton crowd. I guess we just gotta sway enough other people that they have to roll over with the crowd.
Well, I think what we're facing personally is who has more influence? Is it money or is it voters? It's an age-old question. It depends on the issue. We know the outcome for vouchers, right? It's money. It's not voters.
It wasn't the last primary.
But for ranked choice voting, we don't know. It may very well be voters.
All right, Raj.
Yeah, you mentioned that they presented how ranked choice voting helps Republicans. What are the reasons?
In Virginia, it helped them at their primary level because they were able to, I should say in their convention, they were able to nominate a candidate that was electable. And in fact, became elected. So it's the question of, do we continue to stay with the extremes that we know will lose in the general election? Because they've lost in the general election for the past 10 years? Or do we try something new? And they tried something new and it benefited them.
I'm trying to think of a hook.
It's obviously
What
a little different here in Texas because the the Republicans haven't lost a statewide race in 26 years or whatever.
Sure.
So
It's a long road. A lot depends on what happens in May, and more depends on what happens in November. And we realize that. And so we are holding off exactly what we do in 2025 based on the outcome of the May election and the November election, because they both, for different reasons, will have impact on Texas. And so you don't want to spend your money, the money that you have, unwisely. And if it looks like you can't get legislation passed in 2025, what do? You do your ground game, right? And get as many constituents in key districts all excited about ranked choice voting, and maybe even do a pilot until 2027. So, you know, there is a lot of planning that has to be done based on unknowns, right? Now we'll know in May what happens, then we'll know in November what happens. If the Texas House loses 5 Republican seats, that says something.
What do we, all the forward executive committee and county chairs, what do we always say at Forward? It's a marathon, it's not a sprint, right?
Correct.
And it's going to take time and constant pressure.
And the adage is usually that to get any bill passed in the Texas House, in Texas, it takes a minimum of 6 years. And we've been fighting for online voter registration for over 10 years now.
All right, Tony, you got your hand up, and then.
And it's because George Atkins asked a question, and perhaps he can't speak because he has audio problems or something. Anyway, he asked, has there been any inroads to RCV in Harris County, Houston area?
Not that I know of. We are now looking to see when Houston will have a charter review commission. And we're not exactly sure when that is, because it's easier to do this at a municipal level, right, through a charter review commission, like they're doing in Dallas and like what we did in Austin.
Thank you. I can speak. I was just asking in general. Appreciate your help, Tony.
All right. A little time check here. We got about 7 minutes left in the hour. We do try to stay within the hour or so, may spill over a little bit, just out of respect for people's time. Thank you, Joanne. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome.
Truly educational. I want as many people to be aware of your organization's efforts as possible, so that we can dovetail and help each other in any way we can going forward.
Wonderful.
When I opened, I talked about partners, organization, and winning. That was the partners section. Now let's talk a little about what Forward's doing to get organized, continue to get organized, I should say. And after 2 years or so of ground level organization, we're actually having a state organizing convention. It is an e-convention. It's going to be entirely online so that nobody needs to travel. We want to encourage people from all across the state to participate. It's going to be on June 8th. And I want to point out that this is an organizing convention, not a nominating convention. We do not have party access. I'm sorry, we do not have ballot access, so we are not directly nominating candidates for the ballot, but we are getting ourselves organized, better organized at the state level. So at this convention, we will have one election. We're going to elect statewide officers. All the statewide officers, myself as chair, vice chair, Tony as treasurer and secretary. The vice chair, I'm sorry, Tony is secretary. I wish he was treasurer. Tony is secretary, and the vice chair and the treasurer positions are open at the moment. I'm acting as treasurer, so if somebody wants to take that off my hands, please do. Those will be open for election. at the convention. We will amend the party rules as recommended by a rules committee going into that convention. We hope to host some organizing workshops to help folks get better organized at the county and the precinct and the neighborhood level. And we will vote on candidate endorsements for the general election. While we will not have forward party candidates, we are fully able and intend to endorse forward aligned candidates, whether they be Republicans, Democrats, Independents, Greens, or Libertarians for the upcoming November general election. Anybody can attend this convention, but to be a voting attendee, you must be affiliated with the Texas Forward Party. And we're going to ask you to do that by oath. You take an oath that says you're affiliated with the party. That's all there is. If you voted in either the Democratic or the Republican primary, or if you took part in a Libertarian or Green Party convention, by Texas law, you have become affiliated with those parties, and you cannot subsequently affiliate with the Forward Party, at least until January 1st of next year. That doesn't mean you can't attend. It just means you can't vote when it comes down to official party business. To register, I've got a URL up there, Texas Forward, txfwd.org, June_24_ convention. If you want to register, there'll be two options there: to register as a voting attendee or register as a non-voting attendee. We will make this deck available and these links available to everybody, actually everybody who's on the Forward Party mailing list and attendees at this meeting tonight, so that you don't have to race to get over to a browser to register for the convention. We need help putting this convention together. We're establishing 4 different committees: a general convention organizing committee that will determine the run of show, when votes are going to be held, when debates are going to be held, when speakers will speak, etc. An election committee to set up and run that election for the statewide offices. A rules committee to review our current rules and propose changes to those rules, and a candidate vetting and endorsement committee to, again, identify candidates that we may want to endorse in the general election in November. If you want to sign up for a committee, and please, I encourage you to do so, or if you want to indicate that you want to run for one of those statewide offices, again, go to txfwd.org/committee opportunities and follow the prompts to get where you want to go. We need all the help we can get to get this put together. It is only a little over 2 months away. We don't expect it to be a grandly orchestrated event, but we do want it to be an efficient and an effective event. So if you're willing and able to help, please, by all means, head on over and sign up, and we'll get you on board. Any questions on the committee on the convention? Hearing none, seeing none in the chat, I will move on.
So I have a question. I have a question.
Oh, go ahead.
So the question that I have is, if you are entertaining any speakers, ranked choice voting for Texas would be more than happy.
Okay, there you go. Yeah, we should have partner speakers. We should have, we'll have somebody from Forward National, and we'll have partners, and we will, of course, if there are candidates for these offices, they'll have a chance to speak. And hopefully we'll have a keynote by, again, one of the major figures from Forward National. On the screen right now, if you want to take a screenshot, and again, we'll make this deck available after the fact, is the list of all of our acting state officers and our acting county chairs. If you see a county chair listed there in a county in which you live and you want to get involved and help out, grab that email address and send them an email. If you do not see your county listed here, that means we don't have a county chair in your county, and you would like to be a county chair in that county. You can either send an email directly to me, rick.kennedy@texasforwardparty.org, or you can go to txfwd.org/volunteer and indicate again on the checklist that you want to be a county chair, precinct chair, you want to be a local organizer. you want to attend the committee and run for office. We will get you onboarded through that route as well. I always tell people, if you want to be involved, but you don't have time, but you have a few bucks, go ahead and donate. If you don't have money, but you got time, go ahead and volunteer. And of course, you can donate on the website, txfwd.org/donate. John Keller, your hand is up again.
Emails that you showed on the previous slide, were those aliases? Because the email I've been using is just Tarrant@TexasForwardParty.org.
They are aliases. Tarrant at Texas Forward Party would winds up at the same place as Tarrant.county.
Thank you. Fine.
Yep. Okay. Nick, you got a question?
Rick, yeah, I noticed on your sheet that you have there that you show me as the county chair, but we
I
have
have to
co-chairs. Remember that?
add Diane. Yes, thank you for the reminder. And I think Diane's on the call here. Diane, yep,
Yeah.
she is. My apologies, Diane. We'll add you on. Oh no, I added you to the different list. I didn't add you to the slides. I apologize. So we'll get that added before we make this deck available. Yes, we have an embarrassment of riches in Denton County. We have co-chairs. So, and about 240 other counties where we have no chairs. So please, by all means, if you're so motivated, please step up. And that's it. Open for Q&A at this point. Any other questions, comments, topics for discussion? I don't see, actually, let me stop the share so I can see everything. I don't see any hands up. I don't see anything in the chat. We are at 8:03. And as I said, we try to be respectful of people's time and hold it to about an hour or so. So going. Oh, Joanne, right?
Yeah, Rick, the only thing I would say is that we will let you know so you can let everyone else know what the outcome is with the town hall meeting up in
Perfect.
Dallas.
Yep. We'll send out a
As soon as
blast
we
email
find
with the
out.
results. Yep. Fantastic. Hopefully it's very positive.
Hopefully.
All right, last call. Any others? All right. Thanks, everybody. This has been recorded. We will post the recording on YouTube, but I'll put some indices on it so people can get where they want to go quickly. Thank you for your time tonight. Really appreciate it. And everybody have a great night. We'll see you next month. Bye, y'all.
Bye-bye. Thanks.